of Vhodlem, a novel that saw its second edition within few months of its release. So we are very happy that we are launching it here at the 11th edition of Gulf. Friends, I still cannot get over Major General Ian Cardozo's Zhuao, who faced bruises for belongingness and for the love of the game and love of Goa. We know Uday Bab, and we know how many bruises Uday Bab has faced for the same love and belongingness for Konkani, for state of Goa, and for our society. But I think Uday Bab, we as readers and we as literature enthusiasts were waiting for your role as a creative writer. And together with congratulating you, I must thank you for this novel, and I must also thank COVID, which finally made it happen. Many of us know that the novel was ready in your hearts and minds long ago, many years ago, but finally it took COVID to release the novel. But why this delay? Why we had to wait so much to finally read Vhodlem?
अन्वेषाबाई, तुझ्या प्रश्नाक जाप दिवच्या आदी एक कर्तव्य करूंक सोदता. आमच्या मदीं जे व्हड मनीस मानादीक सोयरे म्हणून आयिल्ले आसात, तर बॅनर्जी आनीक मेजर जनरल इयान बाब कार्दोज हांकां आनी तुमकां सगळे मानेस्तांक म्हजो नमस्कार. साहित्याच्या आणि कलेच्या महोत्सवात वांटो घेवपाची खोस वेगळीच आसता. ती खोस आज हांव भोगतां, आनी त्या खातीर इंटरनॅशनल सेंटर गोवा आनीक ह्या महोत्सवाचे आयोजक हांकां सगळ्यांक हांव बरें मागतां. आनी साहित्याची आनी कलेची सेवा ही अशेच तरेन फुडें चलची जायतीं वर्सां अशें मागता. Now I come to the question asked by Anvesha. The main reason is the uncharted course of my life. Till the age of 26, I wrote a play, 6 short stories, and about 20 lyrics. That was the time when the efforts for merger of Goa into Maharashtra began in Goa. I was working for All India Radio in Bombay. I left Bombay, came to Goa, joined the Rashtramat Daily, a Marathi daily newspaper, which was specially brought out to oppose merger and to propagate the cause of Konkani. Thereafter, there was the opinion poll, and one agitation followed the other agitation. I got involved into all these agitations, headed many institutions, and could not get time even to write a short story, leave aside any novel. I could write only a few lyrics, that's all. My profession of practice of law also did not help. That did not give me time enough to write a novel. But I kept reading and taking notes. At the age of 70, I saw that either I have to continue with my profession or I have to stop it to write whatever I desired to write. And it took me about 3-4 years to complete whatever work that was in my hand as a lawyer. And at the age of 75, I closed down my office and decided to write whatever I wanted to write. Suddenly, an invitation came from Goa University. They wanted me to be a chair professor of B.B. Borkar Chair for Comparative Literature and to teach in the Konkani department. I couldn't say no. Normally, teachers, if I'm not mistaken, retire at the age of 60. I became a teacher at the age of 75. And I spent 4 years in Goa University. So it was 79. In the 80th year, I planned the novel and wrote it in the 81st year of my life. That is the exact reason why it was so late. Otherwise, I had started to read and study the subject about 20 years back. It was all cooked in my head, but there was no time to write it up. And I can't write with the several distractions of this type or that type. And as Anmesha said rightly, COVID helped me with there. COVID gave us a lot of trouble, but as far as this novel is concerned, it helped me.
Uday Bab, we are thankful to you for your selfless journey that has finally brought you to this novel. But why this topic of Inquisition? We know this novel is based on the dark period of Inquisition. Why did you think of this topic and wrote this novel on this topic?
It was not deliberate. History is my favorite subject. And if it is Goan history, definitely I'm interested in every part of it. As I said, about 20 years back, I read a book on Inquisition. That aroused curiosity in my mind. And over a period of 20 years, I went on acquiring books on that subject and on the related subject. All books are not on Inquisition, but some are related to that subject or to that period of history. And then I thought that Goans should know their history. I saw that many people were not aware of this history because it is in the books of history and very few people read history books. Then there was an option before me. Either I write a book of history in Konkani, because most of the books are in English only, not even in Marathi. Either I write it as history or I give it in the capsule as fiction. And my experience has been that people reading books of history are less than those who read fiction. So if I present history through fiction, I thought it would reach a wider readership. And therefore, I thought of this novel. But I put some rules for me. I made it a point to ensure that history should not be distorted or exaggerated in any manner at all. While I'm dealing with history, I should stick to the historical part of it and not the imaginary part of it. Secondly, I should also stick to geography. It may appear odd to you that I am referring to geography here, but I'll tell you an instance why I am saying it. There is a book on the same period in English, there is a novel in English, Guardian of the Dawn. The writer, I forget his name, I'm sorry, picks up subjects where Jews have been persecuted. And here in this period, there were Jews in Goa who were persecuted. by Inquisition. So he has written a novel about it. And in the introduction he says, I have not seen Goa at all. I have not visited Goa at any time. Because if I visit today's Goa, I'll not be able to imagine what was Goa 500 years back. So what I did, from the description which is given in the books, I selected a place in Philippines. I went there and stayed and wrote the book there on Goa. So therefore, in that book, Banauli is not in Salsette, outside Salsette. Therefore, such things distort geography also. But I have stuck to geography and I have stuck to history without distorting it in any manner.
In school, as much as I enjoyed reading your novel. But Uday Bab, do you think is it important to dig into history? We most often hear, things like, why do we need to go back to history? Why do you, melli modi kiत्याक gusto म्हणतात आम्ही कोकणी. So, do you think is there a need to go back to history, dig into our history?
History, to my mind, is an important subject, which every child, every person should study or at least read. And perhaps that is the reason why history is being taught from high school to the postgraduate level. There are doctorates in history. History is a great teacher. I found many answers in this history to the present day questions, the present day problems. One can draw lessons from this history. Therefore, knowing history is absolutely important for any person in the world as far as I'm concerned. To give an instance, this novel focuses on religious fanaticism. We in India today are also experience religious fanaticism. Sometimes it is called religious fundamentalism, whatever you call it. And there we learn lessons. What are the consequences of such religious fanaticism? How families meet with tragic ends. How people get displaced. How families get disintegrated. Here are lessons which we can learn from history of 500 years ago. Yet we are repeating the same mistakes. If we were wiser, we could have drawn lessons from this history and avoided such things. But because we do not know that history, we are repeating the same history. And in order that one should not repeat the history which is not good for us, it is necessary to know history. That is the very purpose of writing this and writing it as a novel. Researcher. I read almost every book that I could acquire. Some books were not available. I had to go to the central library and read them. But I did so because writers also differ on many points. There are different kinds of interpretations. All historians do not agree on every issue. Every historian has got his own interpretation. Therefore, I read history written by historians, books written by historians. I read books written by Jesuit historians, books written by Jesuit fathers, books written by others. There are surprisingly authors from different countries have written books on this subject. So after reading all these books, you can come to a conclusion as to what is the truth. By reading one book, perhaps you can be misled. And that will be distortion of history. So in order to know the truth, you read all the books that are available on that subject and then come to a conclusion that this is the truth. And only to find the truth, because I didn't want to distort the truth at all, absolutely. I didn't have any new findings as such, because as I said, I was not doing it as a research. I was trying to get information, and information which has support in the books of history and which is truthful. And I will say it's not findings, but I got a lot of information which I avoided to compress into this novel, because writers sometimes are tempted to put every information that he has. And there are many interesting instances also that require to be written. But to compress them into one book would lead to a Mahabharata or a Ramayana with things unrelated to the main issue or the main story. I didn't want to do that. Therefore, I focused on one particular plot or story and avoided all other things which can be written separately. As I said somewhere, there can be a series of novels on this period. The period between 1510 and 1770 is such a dramatic period in Goa's history that a series of novels can be written. Now at this age, I cannot venture to do that, but someone can do that. Some younger writer can do this, and it is possible. One of our writers from Mangalore, late VJP Sardana, wrote 7 novels on captivity of Mangalorean Christians by Tipu Sultan. And he wrote 5 books on Goa's persecution by the Portuguese. So some younger writer should take up this challenge and go ahead. In briefly, then what is to be found in this novel, which can be used in various ways.
Thank you, Uday Bab. Uday Bab, there would be many readers in the audience who would be looking forward to translations of this novel in other languages. Do we see that in near future?
Translation in Kannada language is already published. I was hoping against hope to bring the English translation today, but that was not possible. It may be available next month or in March. The translation in Marathi is in the press, but may take a couple of months to be released. No, there is no other effort to translate in. Someone suggested to me that he would translate it into Telugu, but I don't know whether he has taken it seriously.
Uday Bab, we hope we get to original work. But are there any repents for not being able to write, especially creative literature?
Well, I would have liked to write more, but there are no regrets. For this reason, that I didn't waste my time. I did what Goa needed at a particular time. I campaigned for the victory of opinion poll, spent 5 years there when my education was incomplete. Then I spent some years in the official language agitation. I'm happy because we won the opinion poll and I was a worker there. I'm happy that we have the Official Language Act, and I was again a small worker in the whole agitation. Then we got the statehood in 1987 and the inclusion of Konkani in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. In the meantime, I was also instrumental to work for the recognition of Sahitya Akademi by Sahitya Akademi of Konkani as an independent literary language. So I have the satisfaction for working for Konkani and Goa. Well, that has its consequences. I could not write more than what I did. But there is still an urge to write. And soon after I finished writing this novel, I wrote another novel on the life of Abhay Faria. Now here again is a problem. If I mention Abhay Faria, there will be many Goans, I'm sure, who will ask me, who is Abhay Faria? Some people consider him to be a Portuguese man. If you go to the class in the university and ask, do you know who is Abhay Faria? There won't be a single hand coming up. That is the situation today. This great man who is recognized by the whole world as the father of the doctrine of suggestion in hypnotism is not known to most Goans. That's a tragedy. We have his statue at a central place near the Adil Shah Palace in Panjim. Many have not seen it. And some of those who have seen it do not know who Abhay Faria is. A son of the soil who goes to Paris, spends his life in Paris, and becomes the father of the doctrine of suggestion in hypnotism, which is used by psychiatrists and others today. He went to many trials and tribulations. Unless one reads his biographies, it is difficult to know how much he suffered, how much he was humiliated, and he died a pauper in Paris. Recognition came later after his death. So he was recognized posthumously. But then unless we know our own great men, there is no sense in saying that we are proud to be Goans. If we do not know our elders who have achieved a lot, who have given to the world something, then that pride becomes hollow. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary to know our history and to know also the Goans. Who contributed something very important to the world. And it's not only Abhay Faria, there are many others. But unless we know about them, it's very difficult to know what kind of people Goa produced. A small Goa produced so much. I remember Nehru's words. After the liberation of Goa, Chandrakant Keni wrote to Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, thanking him for sending the army to to liberate Goa. And Nehru responded by a letter. And in that letter he says, I'm surprised. Goa is a small territory. And such a small territory produced so many freedom fighters. Now he is not definitely exaggerating. He is a man who moved from Kashmir to Kanyakumari during the independence movement. He knew how people came into the freedom struggle. He remarks there that I am surprised that such a small territory could produce so many freedom fighters, those who sacrificed so much for liberation of Goa. Similarly, there are others who worked in other fields of life, and it's necessary that we should know them to be proud of them and their achievements.
Uday Baba, we are indeed grateful.
Story of a family hailing from Raya village of Salset Taluka, which suffered when it was Hindu, got displaced and disintegrated. But the eldest son of the family said, I want to be the owner of my land here. I will not leave my village, because the rule made by the Portuguese was, if you want to live in the village, you have got to convert yourself to Christianity. So there were two options. Either convert to Christianity or leave the village. So the rest of the family leaves the village to other places in Goa. Some of them reach as far as Kochi. And this couple, which gets converted, the protagonist becomes a devout Christian. He serves the people as he was serving earlier. He becomes almost the leader of the Christian community in the village and in surroundings. And then he is arrested by the Inquisition. Because someone who is inimical to him makes an accusation that he helped some other family to take an orphan out of Goa, which he never did. Because at that time the rule was orphans were being taken away by the Jesuit fathers. But there was a definition of the orphan. Orphan would mean, in their own rules, a person who has lost his father and mother and there is nobody to look after him. But that was distorted. And the very moment either father or mother died, they considered the child orphan, took it away. That had happened in his relation, but he was not instrumental at all. But someone who was inimical to him made a false accusation against him. As a result, he was arrested. Now, what was the interest of the Inquisition? The Inquisition wanted properties. And the rule was, the moment Inquisition convicts a person, his whole property is confiscated by the Inquisition. So their eyes were on his property. That is why they accepted that complaint, made a farce of the trial. That was what was being done in the tribunal of the Inquisition. And ultimately sentenced him to be burned to death. That was the ultimate punishment. There were other punishments also, but the severest punishment was to burn to death. So, in other words, the story is of a family which suffers when it was Hindu and which also suffers when a couple gets converted to Christianity because of the Inquisition. Now, here I said there is a lesson we can learn from this, and some questions can be answered on the basis of this history. Some people often wonder about Goans, and they express their sentiments. They say, in North India, there is some kind of prejudice, distance, or animosity between Hindus and Muslims. And we learn about frictions and conflicts almost every day. In Goa, there was conversion. Conversion not only of religion, but also of culture. And there was Inquisition, which punished people by burning to death. Yet, how is that there is religious harmony in Goa? You cannot answer this question without knowing the history. In the history, we learn that Hindus suffered and the converts also suffered. In Konkani or Marathi, there is a word samadukhi. Samadukhi, equally sad. So both suffered. Therefore, both had sympathy for one another. There are instances where a converted Catholic helped his Hindu neighbor. Hindu helped the convert whenever he faced difficulties. And that tradition has continued. And that is why we enjoy religious harmony in Goa. Only history can answer these questions, otherwise it's very difficult to know. Is there anything that I should